You're listening to Market the Brew, a leading resource for promoting and marketing craft beer. Join in as we share with you, straight from the source, tools and strategies craft brewers from around the country are using right now to achieve significant success. As part of our series on breweries opening a second location, we have an episode with Mike Doble about opening a second location during a pandemic. That's episode 48. And recently, we launched our episode with Morgan Halska and Ryan Bandy of Indeed Brewing. They share information about opening a second brewery in another state. In this episode, we are talking to a brewery that opened a second brewery within their existing brewery. Sorry if I lost you there, but it's more about branding and product differentiation and not so much about location in this episode. But nonetheless, a second set of branding, licensing, alcohol and tobacco, tax and trade bureau or TTB approvals, production runs, and distribution does have its own unique set of challenges. And in addition to having two breweries in a single location, they have also taken to naming their beers to a new level of fun and creativity. Beers such as YOLO Is My Strategy, Imperial Murder Hornet is my safe word, Bluegrass Mosh Pit, and a fine Tapestry of Profanity, just to name a few. Find out the thought process behind the unique names, as well as the second brewery inside of the first brewery. But before we start the podcast, a quick reminder that the Market the Brew podcast is available at marketthebrew.com, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other popular podcast sites. The video of this and other episodes are available on Promote the Brew's YouTube channel for you to watch or listen in. We hope that you will join us, share these episodes with your family and friends, and also share them with your contacts in your social media. Now, find a comfortable place to sit, grab a glass of your favorite beer, kick back and relax, and listen in as Danielle and Travis chat with Tom Dufek of Young Blood Beer Company and the Saturday Beer Company located in Madison, Wisconsin. He shares information about himself, the Young Blood Beer Company, and the Saturday Beer Company, as well as their unique names and the process they use for naming beers. Cheers.
Hey, Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
So I'll start by asking you to introduce yourself to ourselves and the listeners.
Sure. So my name is Tom Dufek. I am one of the co-founders of Young Blood Beer Company in Madison, Wisconsin.
And how did you get into the beer industry or the brewery scene?
But it's been a lifelong passion. So my dad actually is a home brewer. My brother's a home brewer. One of my other brothers is in the food and beverage industry. I spent about a decade behind the bar, bartending, running cocktail programs, buying beer. And at some point, Billy, who's one of my partners in Young Blood, he was kind of looking to branch out. He's been in beer sales for a long time. And, like most things, it started over a couple of drinks. And, he was like, I don't know how much longer I want to sell beer, that's not mine. And I kind of, shot my mouth off. I was like, so we're going to start a brewery then? And a couple cigars at Maduro and a couple cocktails later. And, I went home and told my wife, I was like, I think I'm going to start a brewery with Billy.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and it worked out well for you. Youngblood's pretty successful and we see the name everywhere.
Well, that's great. I mean, it's funny because people will say, congrats on the success. I'm like, we're just like, we've got our head down and it's always fun to hear that. But we have so much we want to do, and I feel like we've got so far to go. So it's always good to hear that, because people are like break us out of our just head, mind forward sort of stance all the time. So it's good to hear that. So thank you. I appreciate that.
And when you said a lot of your family members were brewers, were you also home brewing at all?
A little bit. I bought all the home brew equipment when I was like in grad school, which is a terrible time to buy brewing. Never had time. So I have done it. My brother and dad have done it way more than I have. And now I have like a big brewery, so I don't have anymore.
Do your dad and brother ever come over and make a couple beers in the brewery?
They haven't yet, but they're both Milwaukee based, so they haven't come up and hung out. And my brother actually works for Miller Coors, so he's around a big, huge brewery all the time. But I think once my dad retires, he's gonna like get the itch to come up and like try it on a big commercial system. But not yet. We haven't gone there yet.
Well, I am voting for the family brew, the retirement brew.
There you go. Yep. Well, it's funny. My wife at one point was like, Dufek family brewery, let's make it a thing. Everybody likes beer. And so I feel like she like manifested the brewery. It didn't exactly turn out that way, but she like manifested Youngblood like many years ago.
That's amazing.
So how long has Youngblood been in business, and what made you choose like the Madison area?
Yeah, so Youngblood has been, we opened our doors in May of 2020, basically just for to go. We were able to start having customers in July or late June. I don't remember. There was this thing happening at that time in 2020.
Put a little damper on things.
Yeah. So, we settled on Madison because we really saw Madison as like a place that, there was a lot of places that did, like are real big, like production oriented breweries. Now your Carbon Fours or your Wisconsin Brewing Company, your Capital, these kind of big, they have tap rooms, but a lot of what they were doing was putting beer out into production in cans and bottles and that sort of thing. And then on the other side, you had these, really small kind of, there was some taproom stuff, but we wanted to like approach Youngblood as we serve beer, but like if you didn't know any better, if you didn't see beer company, you would just think you were in any other kind of bar or restaurant, or not any other, but like a cool bar or restaurant. And because we really wanted to focus a lot on like the guest experience, and we wanted to, my background is in hospitality and running programs like that, and we just thought that like kind of complete experience was missing. There's definitely people out there doing like Working Draft. Is a great example of people who do it really well, but we thought there was opportunity for more, and especially downtown. There really hadn't been a brewery downtown outside of the Great Dane in a couple of decades, so we didn't want to let them have all the fun. So that's kind of how we settled on Madison and specifically that, kind of downtown area for Settlement District where we are.
How big is your brewery? Because we've been there obviously before, and you guys do use the space pretty well for how big it is.
Yeah, it's less than 2,000 square feet. It's like I think 1,900 square feet or something like that. We have the patio, which helps out a lot. But one of the cool kind of features of the brewery is like being able to look down onto the tanks. That was born out of like we had no floor space, but we didn't want to put the tanks upstairs, and somebody was like, well, what if you just cut out and we couldn't put them downstairs because it's like the ceilings are like 7 feet down there. It's like pretty small. And somebody's like, well, just cut out the floor and then you can kind of poke up, and then you like, don't have to put it all upstairs. And like this weird, like crazy idea that was just kind of born out of like trying to fit more stuff in there. And now it's this really cool feature that people love when they come to the tap room.
It worked out really well. Everyone talks about it. I know it's like one of the favorite vibes that we have when we go to breweries. We're always like, oh, this reminds us of Youngblood. And it's just like that chill vibe of the beer.
Yeah.
Like it's the place to be.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's always good to hear, that we're succeeding, and because that's important to us. I mean, we have a much bigger distribution footprint now than we ever really planned on because of COVID. But for us, the tap room is the beating heart of Youngblood. It's who we are, it's what we're about, it's where all the fun ideas come from. And so it's always good to hear that, because the tap room is really what we want it to be about.
Do you guys use a distribution company, or do you mostly do everything in-house or with like collaborations and then like with other breweries at their places?
Yeah, we distribute through a distributor in Milwaukee and then a distributor in Madison.
Okay.
We make all the beer in-house now, which wasn't always the case. We did some contract production because we were just kind of growing so fast. So Carbon 4 made beer for us, and then Hop House made wort for us. So they would make wort that we'd then bring to our tanks and ferment on site, and package it and all that sort of stuff. But getting Youngblood to where it is now, I mean, we used to, we would go to Hop House, we'd pick up 300 gallons of sugar water, pump it into the tanks, or just let gravity do its work, actually, because we were just going down into the basement. It was one of the benefits of we didn't think of that.
Right.
And then once it was done fermenting, we'd put it in kegs, we'd haul it out of the basement, and we'd take it over to Carbon 4, and they would put it into their tanks, carbonate it, package it for us. We'd bring that back. It was just this
That's a process.
Yeah, I mean, there was weeks where they were just hauling like 40-50 kegs out of the basement.
That's a workout for sure, though. I don't have to have a gym
all
membership or
of our
anything.
production stuff was really jacked.
It's funny when you said you guys opened in 2020, because I think we just started getting into the brewery scene around that time.
Okay.
And I think we had visited your tap room for the first time that winter, and it felt like you guys had been around for years.
Yeah.
Like, I had no idea you were open that recently.
Yeah.
So that's super cool.
I think a lot of that had to do with like the design of the tap room, right? We wanted to it's always hard when you build a new place, because you don't want it to look like super new. You want it to look like it's been lived in. And that building is we're in the first settlement district, right? So it's one of the places that when people settled in Madison, it's one of the first places that they settled there. So there was a lot of cool stuff under drywall and drop ceilings and stuff like that. So I'd say it's because of the design, but it's really, we just ripped everything off and kind of let the building do the work, really. So but even that drink rail that goes around the bar, when we cut the floor out, there were these big 2x12 wooden joists that were just going to end up in the trash. So we took those and repurposed them, and that's what our drink rail is. It was floor joint that we saved from the cutting out the floor, and actually the floor is on the the bar front. I don't know if you this yellow wood. We cut the floor out, we saved the floor, and we put it on the front of the bar.
Oh my gosh.
Partially because we're cheap and we but also it was a way to use material that had some life in it, and it's stuff that had been installed decades ago, and it was cool to kind of bring it back to life and reuse it.
So not only is the tap room something we think of first when we hear the name Youngblood, but the other thing is the witty names for your beers.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been a beer I haven't laughed at.
Good.
So who creates these names?
So we have a Google Doc that's literally titled beer names. I think it's 14 pages at this point.
Oh my God.
Billy and I have a background in cocktails, and I'm terrible at naming cocktails. So what I used to do is a name would come to me, or I'd hear a song lyric or something like that. I'd be, oh, that'd be a cool name for a cocktail. And I'd have just a running list of cocktail names. And so then when I had a cocktail, I'd be like, okay, look, what's a name that kind of fits this drink? And that's how I would name a lot of my drinks. We started doing that with beer names, just and it's really what it is Billy says something funny, And then I'm like, oh, that's a good beer name. And they're right. And now it's gotten to the point where our bartenders will submit us beer names. Like there's two guys, Mark and Steve, who are like our two longest tenured bartenders. And they will like just hand me like notepads, like, beer names on them. We have people like fans of the brewery who will give us beer names, and
Oh my
we don't
gosh.
care. Like if they're good, we'll put them on the list. And there's so many on there at this point. We actually have an unusable section on there too. It's offensive. Like, it's too offensive, So it's really helpful because we do, we make so many different beers that like, I think if we were naming them on the spot, just inspiration wouldn't strike. So we just kind of like find humor in the things that the conversations we have. And then, and sometimes we'll put the name on the list and I'll put a little note to it so I know like what it's referencing, because you get asked all the time, like, how did that name come up? And we're like, early on, I don't remember. Like, I know it's funny, but like, I actually don't remember where that came from, So, it's kind of taken a life of its own, but it's just conversational, and it's just, we're all kind of, sorry, my dog just ran in the room. She's like, it's us having conversations, and I think we're a pretty close-knit bunch at this point. So, somebody says something, and then like you will see people just kind of like ears perk up, and they're like, "That's a beer name." So,
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I love that. Like your staff is adding names, like the community's adding names. Like it's just become a fun thing.
Yeah. It's certainly one of the things that and like I said, there was no plan for this to be like the thing we did. We just had, I think when we were opening during COVID, we had so many other things to think about. And, we were like, hey, we have that list. Should we just like pull stuff from the list? And so we started, I think there was a couple that we came up with, like Murder Hornet Is My Safe Word was one we came up, not on the list. But like most of them, it was like, well, let's just use that list, because then we use the list and we have a million other things to think about with COVID. So right. It's funny how it works out sometimes.
Well, and you have so many names. Is there one in particular, one that you can think of that's been like your favorite?
Oh man, that is really
probably a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I like Murder Hornet Is My Safe Word because I think it's pretty funny, and also like for us, like we really, there's something fun about like, well, we're gonna make it once and then it's not coming back, and that one's come back a couple of times, but it's like there's something kind of freeing about it, and like Murder Hornets, we're gonna like take over the world was like this big thing, and like as we were opening the brewery, that was like a thing that was in the news. So it was fun to be able to just like grab onto that and like put it in there. Another one I really like is I'm calling about your vehicle's extended warranty, which I think
yes, I think we had that one over there.
It's like everybody gets those calls, and it's just like I don't know who put it on the list, but I was just like, oh, that's hilarious.
That was pretty good. I know we're always standing at like the tap list, just reading them, laughing. Yeah, and I feel so bad for your staff because they just wait forever for us to like get on with it, and we just sit and like look. Totally.
They're a part of it, so they've done it to themselves.
We should start asking if they have any ideas that they're waiting on.
Oh, it'd be like, are any of those your names up there?
Yeah,
right.
So a few of the past interviews we've had, some people have mentioned how hard it is to come up with beer names because there's so many breweries in the US and there's so many beers that everyone makes. A lot of them have duplicates. Have you run into that problem?
So it's funny you asked that, because we have, but mainly with the things that are like pop culture reference. So we got sued for using shower beer, or not sued. We got a cease and desist. Somebody owns the trademark for shower beer, a brewery in Virginia, I believe. And so we got a cease and desist.
Oh my God.
Trademark this. We got actually Saturday Beer Company. It's our sister brand. We released a beer called Special Pilsner. And Capital Brewing has been making a special Pilsner for like 30 years. And we like it's just like one of those that we didn't even like it totally over our heads. So we've changed that since then. But I think the names that come up in conversation, I almost never have to worry about it. Another brewery having those. It's the stuff that's like out there in popular. Like we have a beer called Making Love at Midnight, which is like a pina colada beer. And there's like 10 Making Love at Midnights out. Like, so we just what I do is I run them through Untapped, and that's like about the most that I'm gonna do, because it's most of them are gonna be done anyways. But we've run into it a couple of times, but for the most part, I think our names are zany enough that nobody's silly enough.
You probably have to worry about someone else using your name.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, like I think when we go to like the store too, we see like all your beers and names. And the one that I think the first one that we ever brought home was the West Dallas timeshare.
Yeah, totally.
Just because we pretty much live in the West Dallas area. Yep. So we bought it just for the name, and it's incredible. Like we bought it just because of the name, and the beer itself turned out to be great. So I was happy about it.
That's good. So that actually came from there's a bar called Station Number 6 in West Dallas, and they're huge supporters. They're also awesome, like hilarious, just kind of brothers in arms, if you will. And Miles, who's one of the, I think he's the main manager. I don't know his actual position because I'm not in there talking to him every day. He and Billy were talking about that, and West Dallas timeshare was a Miles name. So
oh my gosh. We gotta go.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, I love it too. I'm from West Dallas, so I was born in West Dallas. So gotta embrace it.
Well, in Station Number 6, I feel like they're hilarious. Like they're trying to create like, if you're not familiar, West Dallas kind of had the name like the Dirty Stallus. Yeah. And I feel like Station Number 6 now is trying to make it the Fancy Stallus.
Oh, is that them?
Yeah, they have like shirts that say it. And
oh my gosh, really? That's amazing. That's so good. Yeah, well, I mean, West Dallas timeshare, that was from them.
I know, if you do like a collab beer, maybe you can have the Fancy Stallus. Add it to the list.
Yeah, I'll put it on the list.
So which beers have you found Youngbloods to be like the most successful beers?
It's a good question. I mean, we make a lot of sours. I mean, I think people are really digging kind of what we're doing with sours. We, like our fruit punch sours are like, people love those things. And that's a fun one because so when they the whole reason for that those beers even exist is because as we were, that first spring after 2020, so like the spring of 2021, like when March hit, it was like somebody flipped a light on. People were like getting vaccinated at that point. They were like, just get me out of the damn house. So there was just like people like more than we ever anticipated. And I remember Kyle was just like, we're so low on beer, like what do I do? And he had like a half barrel of like just like sour beer. It was just a base, not fruited, nothing in it. And he's like, well, I guess I could put this in a blending tank and I could add fruit punch to it and be kind of like a radler, like you've got like grapefruit soda mixed with beer. And this could be something like that. And like we'll just put that on and it'll stretch it a little bit longer. And now we make like one of those a month at least. So I think he didn't know what he was doing to himself. But it's fun, and we don't add just straight fruit punch to it anymore. But it's like I think a really young blood take on beer because it's fun. It's light. They're 4.2%. Excuse me, and they're somewhat silly. You're drinking beer that kind of tastes like fruit punch, but like drinking is supposed to be about fun. It's not all supposed to be serious, and I love that style that we do. I would say the other styles that we probably do that I really like that we're probably less known for is like our classic styles. We call them Kyle beers because they're like, the beers Kyle likes to make, or he's really good at saisons and Belgian style stuff. And he can come up with endless variations of that sort of thing. So I really like that, the Belgian styles and kind of the classic styles that Kyle comes up with as well.
And I feel like the sours nowadays is like the new wave, like how like White Claws took off and everything. I think like the sours now are kind of like the new in thing, like for the beer world and everything.
Well, yeah. Well, so the funny thing about where we're located, right? We're like a block from the Capitol. We're in this kind of main, entertainment district, if you will. So we're not like a destination brewery. Like there's a ton of people who come in who are with somebody who wants to go to a brewery, or they don't even know we're a brewery. They're just like see a place that's got like cool plants and they're like, let's go there. So we get people all the time coming in who are like, I don't normally drink beer. They find out we're a brewery. We're like, we don't have spirits. We don't have, anything like that. And so it's like, well, what would you suggest? And we're like, well, try one of these sours, because they're approachable, and it kind of it's an option that is really a necessity for us in that part of town, because I think if we were only catering to like beer flavored beer, we'd probably end up disappointing a lot of people. So it's another reason why we've kind of leaned into it is because it's good to have those options for folks in the in the tap room.
And you talked about Saturday beer before, so let's kind of like shift to that. How did that get started, and how does that incorporate with Youngblood?
Yeah, so the fun part of Youngblood is we don't really remake the same beer, right? Or if we do, it's like 2 years later. So but that's also a downside. If somebody really, really likes a beer, they can't get it, or they gotta wait 2 years. We wanted to have a brand that was a little bit more consistent, and we wanted to make an IPA and Pilsner and a wheat beer. We want to make those three, and just something that was really good that you could count on, you could get all the time. We also wanted to kind of have a lower price option, right? So like Saturday 6-packs are like $9.99 on shelves, because a $16 4-pack, like I don't necessarily mind spending that, but I'm probably not the average beer consumer as well. Like I think my dad would just be like, yeah, I'm not paying $16 for that, unless it's barrel aged. I think that's the only thing. So we realized we were missing kind of a certain segment of the consumer. Also like you're out at kind of a dive bar, or somewhere that's not like a traditional beer destination. Well, they're probably not going to buy a quarter barrel of a 9% pastry sour or something like that. So we wanted Saturday to be more consistent, a little bit lower priced, just so that we could offer something to a different segment of the market, because we really did feel like there was a segment of the market that we were missing with Youngblood and not able to interact with.
And is Saturday beer, you guys just brew that all in-house as well, or is that kind of like off premise?
Nope, we brew that all in-house.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's been really good, but kind of crazy. We opened a production facility on the east side of Madison in December of 2021. Yeah, is that right? About a year ago. Like what year are we in? So we have the production capability now, and I think that was one of the reasons that we had Saturday kind of kicking around, or not necessarily the name, but the idea for it for a while, but we didn't have the production capabilities. So we knew if we wanted to do that, we wanted to do it in-house, and we have the facility now, so it makes it a little bit more realistic to actually be able to do it and accomplish it.
We've had the Saturday beers and they're really good.
Yeah.
It's a nice option if you just want your like straightforward beer and like nothing like flavorful, or just the simplicity of it. They're really good.
We call it Born Beer for Cool People. It's like our tagline, it's an IPA that's an IPA, it's a Pilsner that's a Pilsner. There's no like weird teas or fruits that we put in it. It's beer flavored beer, because if I'm like sitting at home and like watching a game, I'm probably gonna have like 2 Pilsners as opposed to like 2 of these big pastry sours.
Right.
So, it's a nice option to have.
And where can listeners find Saturday beers right now?
So we're in the Madison area, pretty well distributed at this point, all of your kind of normal places. So you're thinking like your Woodman's and festivals and a lot of the independents like Trixie's. So it's pretty well distributed. We also have a store locator on our website, which is SaturdayBeerCo.com. And then we did launch just recently in the northeastern part of the state. So like, Fox Valley, Green Bay area. La Crosse is going to be coming online, in the next couple of months, and then hopefully Milwaukee in spring. I was gonna say, you guys want to know.
Yeah.
All right.
We're just, we're treading carefully just because we want to make sure that we're able to supply the market. And if we would have launched everywhere, we would have ran out of beer. So we're kind of turning markets on, as we get a better idea of what the brand's going to do and look like.
And has it been going well? Like, are you seeing a lot of people kind of becoming interested in it?
Yeah. The reaction has been really, really good. We've gotten, I think it helps that we're, people know it's a Youngblood brand. So it's helps people know that the product's going to be good and that there's going to be a good group of people behind it. But yeah, the reaction has been, we got a call from our distributor there. It was like, just double what you're going to make this month, which is, somewhat stressful, but also really cool. It's been a really good reaction so far. So, we're still basically 6 weeks in. So we're still pretty, new with it. So we'll see how it goes. But thus far, we're pretty happy with it.
And how have you been marketing the beer? Just because the names are different, like Youngblood versus Saturday. How is that marketing going and how are you doing that?
Yeah, so what we do is we don't hide from the fact that it's a Youngblood brand. We do want to make sure that the brands stand on their own. But on the back of the Saturday cans, it says a Youngblood beer company vibe. So we're somebody was writing a story about us and they accused us of being a company too obsessed with vibes, and we're like, yeah, that's probably fair. But that's right on the back of the can. So it's small, it's subtle. We have it on the website too. So really what we're trying to do is kind of push it out through our normal channels, right? So we have, Saturday has its own Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff, but we share a lot of it from Youngblood because we think a lot of those same people will be interested. And then, we're out doing samplings with it. We actually don't really do a ton of samplings with Youngblood. We're doing more with Saturday. So just kind of trying to get the beer in people's hands. I'm doing festivals. So, a lot of the stuff that you would, kind of traditionally see. And our distributor's been really, really helpful and supportive of helping us launch the brand as well.
And like I said, we've tried the beers, but can you share with us what are the types of beers that are out right now for Saturday Beer Company?
Yeah, so there is 3 core brands that will always be around year round, and then each quarter we're going to do a sour, not as heavily fruited as some of the Youngblood stuff, but still lower ABV. So the current seasonal is pear, apple, and cinnamon. So you almost taste like, somebody told me it almost tasted like a cider, which there's a fair amount of apple in there, but it's it tastes like falling a glass to me. And then we have an IPA called Lawn Lines. So it's double dry hopped with Mosaic and Apollo. We love Mosaic at the brewery and use it a lot. So that's 6% ABV, just like some Mosaic double dry hopped hazy IPA. Impromptu Pool Party is a American wheat ale. So just a kind of probably not, we're moving out of that season now a little bit, but
right.
your golden wheat beer, American style, a little bit more hop bite than like your Belgian styles. And then unfiltered Pilsner. So basically a Pilsner that we don't, filter. So it's got a little bit more body to it. Very, very small amount of hop bite. We use Mount Hood hops in there. So, noble hop. And it's just a small amount of bitterness to it, but a really, really light, really crushable a beer. And those are the 3 that are around all the time. We'll have a winter seasonal coming out in like 2 months or so for that one that'll replace the fall, the pear and apple and cinnamon one.
Oh, cool. I need to get my hands on that.
Well,
That sounds really good.
sour just released. So I mean that released maybe 2 weeks ago, I think, to the market. So that one's brand new.
So you might be driving to
Madison.
Madison.
Yeah, right. There you go.
And some of the names that you shared, like the impromptu pool party, like it's funny, it's witty. Are you planning to have those same names kind of be similar to the similar names for Saturday as to the Youngblood witty names?
I think probably not. So the sours are farmers markets, Saturday farmers market, and then we're just gonna have the season behind it. So Saturday farmers market, fall. So they're definitely toned down. Actually, impromptu pool party is probably the funnest of all.
That was my favorite.
Unfiltered Pilsner is just, and then Lawn Lines is the IPA. So I think we'll probably keep them a little bit more subdued again to kind of help, show that the brands are, different, and, there's a connection, but, they're they have two different, kind of aims and goals.
But the names you have are still pretty creative. Like they kind of match like what you could be doing while you drink it. It's like Lawn Lines, like we cut the grass with it, and impromptu pool party had a pool party.
Exactly. I told somebody the vibe of Saturday Beer Company is right there in the name. We don't hide it. Saturday, right? So it's about relaxation. It's about having fun. There's a little lawn chair like on the Saturday logos labels as well. So try and get you in that relaxation vibe.
Yes.
Have there been any challenges creating a sister brand?
So the only challenges are really, well, not the only. I mean, we wanted to make something that was distinct. So, when you've got one brand that you've lived with for, 2 years, 3 years almost, there's just a certain way that you are used to just thinking about things and thinking about that brand. So we really had to like break that down. And, we kind of started from the beginning and said, what do we want this brand to be? And, the way we were kind of talking about it was like, imagine if this company had a beer brand, or imagine if this company had a beer brand. And like one of the ones that I kind of latched onto was like Patagonia, which is like, Patagonia is like kind of hip, but like still everybody has Patagonia. Like you can show up to like a PTA meeting and like Patagonia, or you can go hiking in it. It's like, it's really cool and boring at the same time. And they have this like very classic vibe that speaks to like quality, longevity, but is, still has a certain amount of like, I want to, I like wearing it because I like the brand. So, that was one. And we just kind of tried to like latch onto a little bit of that and get away from like the beer aspect of it, and think about like kind of what we wanted the brand to like, feel like, look like. And so that was hard, just kind of getting into a different mindset. And then when you have a brand that is as distinct as Youngblood, I mean, Youngblood, I think, is a very distinct brand at this point. Associating, a new brand with that, you want to, because you want people to know like, hey, this is, this isn't BS, right? There's good people behind this brand. But then I think some people really want to connect the two, and we have to like kind of be like, well, they are totally separate. Like it is not a Youngblood brand. It's made by Youngblood, made by the people behind Youngblood, but it is not a Youngblood brand. So, kind of having to repeat that message, but that's, that's whenever you launch a brand, there's always like that education aspect and education part. I just think it's, a little bit more, not difficult, but it's just something you have to think about more when you have a brand that people really can like identify with and pick out of a crowd.
Do you guys plan on opening like maybe another tap room just specifically for Saturday beer?
We've talked about it. Nothing in the works right now, so that's not a.
Oh man.
Yeah. But we've talked about, like if we were to open a Saturday tap room, like what would it look like? And I was like, oh, we'd have like lawn games and like bocce ball and like
bag board,
stuff like that. Yeah. Or be like, I was like, we should open a bowling alley, that like Saturday tap room, something like that. So we've talked about it, and I think that's kind of the benefit of creating two brands that are able to kind of stand on their own, is we do have the opportunity, I think, to have a tap room that's specific to Saturday. The problem will be like, we only make 7 beers, so it's like always the same beers. So we'll probably have to, bring in some young blood as well. But yeah, it's definitely something we've thought about.
So shifting back to Youngblood, is there anything in the near future we need to know for our Youngblood?
Trying to think. No, I mean, well, I mean, yeah, there is some fun stuff coming up. So we have some fooders that are now fooders, like big oak vessels that you use to like sour beer, like wild fermentation. We have those now in the tap room. So we actually moved some of the tanks out and put them at the new production facility. We filled those in March, I think March of this year. So we're still a couple months away from that, but we're going to have, some wine barrel aged wild fermented sours, some foeder aged fermented sours. Excuse me. And then we're starting barrel aging as well. So that's going to start this winter, basically December, January kind of time frame. So we should have stuff that will hopefully start releasing by winter next year. But we're going to start that, it's not one, we're never going to have like a huge, massive program, but I think we're bringing in like 50 barrels or something like that over the course of the next 12 months. So those will be two big, new things for us.
That's exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting.
That's a lot. You sound busy.
There's nothing going on.
Well, I think we covered everything we were kind of wondering about with Youngblood and Saturday Beer Company. Was there anything that we forgot to ask or anything you wanted to mention?
No, I mean, just come visit us in the tap room. I mean, that's the thing, right? I always tell people, like, I love when people have, found us in stores or at their favorite bar or restaurant, but like, I think to get the real, Youngblood experience, you got to come check out the tap room. It's, I'm biased, but I think it's pretty cool. So I always tell people, if you haven't been to the tap room, come, check it out. Also, like, if you don't like the beer, there's like 10 other bars right by. So
you guys got food too. You got some food too.
Yep, we got food there.
My favorite thing has to be the crunch wrap that you guys have. That thing is amazing. I get it every single time I go there.
It is. It's great. And that's like, again, I think that's like a very Youngblood thing, right? We're just gonna take a Taco Bell item and we're just gonna make it better.
Literally,
it's better. I mean, just make it differently, I guess. Nothing against Taco Bell. No one gets food.
Thank you so much for talking with us tonight. It was awesome to hear everything about the beer companies and how successful how successful they become.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys reaching out, and it's always fun to talk about the story behind who we are. So thanks for thinking of us.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you in the tap room soon.
Sounds good. Have a good one, guys.
We've reached the end of this episode, but there's plenty more to keep you busy. For online source materials and proven case studies delivered right to your inbox, sign up for our mailing list by visiting marketthebrew.com. We'll see you next time on Market the Brew.